Hello, this is Cam from the Brother Slim, and today is a doubleheader update, which is very cool, very exciting. I actually wasn't expecting any update today, so it was a double treat, shall we say. I think it'll probably go up yesterday by the time of this one recording, but I'm wearing the same sweater, it is the same day, and I figured I would just record these at the same time while stuff is out ready for it. So this is Kingdoms Forlorn, Q&A and updates. Hello everyone! As we dive into November, we want to thank each of you for your ongoing support and patience. We hope you had a happy Halloween. We're planning a mini Halloween party at our office tomorrow. A bit late, but better late than never. Plus, it's a great way to lighten up the gloomy November mood. But let's cut to the chase. We're excited to share some updates on the project and coming to you today with a double feature. Yes, indeed. So I think we've seen this art before. It is the Sunken Kingdom of Utravance, and it is a lovely piece of art. One critique or personal thought that I had about Kingdoms Forlorn is like it's very dull, muted tones and gray, and I love seeing more of this finalized art where it still does have that dark and moody vibe, but there's still like some really nice use of color in it. Knights and Squires. This update is very important to us, and we'd like to address any loose threads about the project that might have fallen into the background during the developmental cycle, and clear up any doubts or misconceptions about the contents of the full game. No worries though, some things have simply evolved during the creative process, resulting in certain changes from the initial concepts, usually by getting bigger. First of all, there's been some major changes in the Knight and Squire setup. We decided on certain upgrades in terms of Knight elements, and over time, the initial Knight sheet and Knight tracker combo has evolved into something else entirely, a two-part double-layered Knight board. Knights will use both of them, while Squires will only use one. I mentioned this on the box art, I really like the freaking motif that they've gone with this game. I think I say it every single time that I cover stuff for this game, but I no longer am getting it. Had to refund it just due to personal finances, life, and time and all that kind of stuff. But my goodness, if disposable income was not a thing, as was free time, this would be such a fun game. And a beautiful one at that too. So digital mock-up looks awesome, the coloration's fun and very functional, but also keeping like this beautiful visual going on too. Like the fog and the gate/tower there. Yeah, like it a lot. Work in progress, just fun little detail there. So there is the Squire board. Oh, cool. That's such a fantastic function. I love it. So that's the same thing, just the one half. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so case in point, if you were playing solo and you have the one knight and having two or three, I guess you'd have to have three squires. You could just have the three Squire boards lined up side by side, and they wouldn't take up much more room than having like a second full knight. Squires themselves have also undergone certain changes. They're more durable now and have their own stats and simplified heroic arcs. They will also grow in power as you progress, unlocking new and more useful abilities. Despite these changes, Squires still fulfill their initial purpose well. They're easier and faster to play than Knight would be, now with more personality and panache. Panache? One of those two. Also, an important note regarding Knight stories that we wrote about in Update 65. You might have noticed that Knight books will ultimately consist of 5 chapters instead of the initial T's 10. However, the overall amount of text included for each Knight book is the same, if not bigger. It's just differently structured now. Each individual chapter is longer and much more complex, hence the smaller number of chapters. In terms of delves, the Knight's Tale have actually ballooned and now consist of around 20. Oh, wild. That's cool. Bookmark for the Knight book. That's just a fun and awesome inclusion, and a beautiful bookmark. I shared this before too, but I used to work in publishing. Bookmarks is something that we would do too, and there's just such a fun little extra feature, and I just love how thematic and perfect that is. And I don't know what it is about people falling through the air. It's just a great motif. I like it. Gears, upgrades, and loot cards. Now for gear cards. As you may remember from previous updates, we've introduced a loot system in Update 52, thanks to which the amount of unique gear you can attain from one monster raised from 1 to 2 to a whopping 8. There's also been changes to the gear distribution system to allow for more modularity. We opted for fewer cards dedicated to specific knights, 1 card per tier, and more gear available to any knights to purchase and use without reducing the overall amount of cards. There's also upgrades, previously called quality cards, which allow for even more customization of your equipment, providing rare bonuses. And we have some cool art here. Some awesome potions. I think this is a pumpkin. Oh no, it's not a helmet. This is a pumpkin armor because it has got sleeves. Hips there. Cool. Mushroom armor, which is neat. These looks like some horribly... Not gonna lie, from something I saw in Aeon Trespass, they look kind of like representation of crawling parasitic kidney stones, and that is horrifying. this is cool too. Some sort of worm and creepy. I think this might be like pumpkin head hands, just how sharp the nails are or something. That's cool though. Gameplay updates. There have also been some changes to the 5-player mode. After long tests and serious consideration, we've opted to alter the initial scope of this mode and expand it. The 5th player will be able to join at any time of the campaign in between delves. The campaign intended for 5 players will also be longer overall than normal, and the resources available to gain during the delve will be shared among more knights, but that will be balanced by more quests available during the campaign. Interesting. True solo mode has also undergone certain changes, mainly in relation to the relationship between knights and squires. Knights are no longer defiant. They won't stand in the way of your decisions during delves, just like when playing with other knights. The party leader gets the final say. Stoked on that. It was one thing that when they announced the squires, and that was one of their first things, I was like, ooh, that just sounds like a barrier to fun, especially if you're playing by yourself and you don't get to dictate like your own story, but like your minions get to throw wrenches in it. Like the idea of it is cool, but in practice, like if I'm playing a story, I want to play through the story, not have more things thrown in the way from like the choices that I want to make. Speaking of experience, and without getting into spoilers from the most recent ATO play that we did, some checks are really hard to make, and you miss out on cool story stuff because the checks that you can't make, and so you miss out on story stuff because the choice has been taken away from you on top of that. That just doesn't strike me as fun. So I definitely agree that that is the right decision. This change occurred as it felt less like a feature and more like a penalty for being a solo player. I think that's a good summary. Also, there's been changes to balance storyline progress in solo mode. While playing with a singular knight, it will be possible to resolve multiple investigations per delve to prevent pacing issues for solo players. Note that you can still play with squires, even if you're not playing solo. It's just that a true solitary knight gets some additional rules to balance things out. Cool. There's a mopey-looking squire there. Oh, I'm digging how the art's so big, though. And also the... Oh, what is the word for it? The art style or whatever is made to look in the background like an old school painting. I like that. I love the little historical details and mythological things that just really make ITU's games just fit so well within the setting that they're trying to achieve. Post-game mechanic. The concept of post-game has undergone some changes and expanded too. To those already familiar with our products, we would describe its current form as a Nestis Theater Plus. Now, anyone watching this should be aware of that, but basically it's kind of, in Aeon Trespass, it's kind of the equivalent of the X-Men, oh god, I can't remember the name of the chamber that they go in and have make-believe invisible fights or whatever, but that kind of thing. But even more innovative and interesting. Post-game revolves around the dungeon mechanic, where you will test your mettle and occasional fireball against the hardest monsters that we can throw at you in 4 different dungeons, each providing a different gameplay approach. We already elaborated on 2 of them in Update 65 and 67, you can check them out for details. While venturing into a dungeon, you can either track more and more powerful enemies or jump into a gauntlet of clashes and test the limits of your endurance against a plethora of different monsters. We're positive it will provide you long hours of additional gameplay experience. 2 of those dungeons have been designed by Marcin as pinnacle activities, giving you a taste of what future raids for any of our games might become. So raids was something that was, I think, was a stretch goal for the original Aeon Trespass game, and it's something that they've shelved for the time being and intend to bring out, as they say, in the future, which I'm very curious about. I will say, so the Nestis Theater is something that we've unlocked in our Aeon Trespass gameplay campaign so far, and we haven't done it yet, and it doesn't have a huge amount of appeal to do for us, because it doesn't have any impact on the story or drive any of the plot forward, but there are things that you can unlock from it. So I'm of mixed feelings of it. I love the fact that it's there for people that wants to do that challenge, but the fact that there's things that I want to unlock in it, but I don't really want to not focus on the story aspects of the game, especially with like having very limited play, and especially with it being like a really hard fight and spending perhaps like a multiple like 2 or 3 sessions trying to beat it. That's not fun for me personally. I've seen people that have been super keen on them online though, so obviously every person enjoys different things of the games, and it's fantastic that there's the option there for people. Cool. And speaking of modes, Marcin's roguelike mode has expanded into an alternate campaign in which you eschew traditional storytelling and progression in favor of an expanding, evolving gauntlet of boss battles, one in the shape of a tree. A growl tree, if you will. Interesting. Growl sounds kind of like grail to me and kind of knightly. Tree, I don't know though. Mob monsters and a counter mechanic. who've also done plenty of additional work on mob monsters. They're not just a swarm of the same monster type as the name might suggest. Nearly every single mob BP is a unique enemy with different effects and additional abilities. We're very excited for you to experience this mechanic. So I can't remember if it ended up being an add-on or not, but there was talk about doing a specific standee add-on for each individual specific unique enemy of the mob body part cards, which is a really fun change from Aeon Trespass, where the body part cards are all related to the specific monster you're trying to fight. In this case, because it's a mob, it's a big group of whatever the entity is, like let's say the Iron Cast Dead, Iron Armored Skeletons. Each one is unique with slightly different variances and different abilities with a unique art that goes along with it, which is really cool. So different names and such too. There might be Chonky Stabber, who's a big, round, stabby guy, and then maybe Grave McJimbo, who hits you with a with a grave. But yeah, like really stylized art, looks really, really cool. Okay. As for encounters, to expand on the information provided in Update 59, there will be 3 types of encounter boards in total, each bigger than the other to account for the size and amount of monsters. Moreover, the encounter boards will not be separate physical sheets, but will be printed on the backside of the Clash board. To have them close at hand during the delve, you can simply fold the board into 1/4 and keep it on the table to resolve the encounter minigame during a delve. That is, unless you'll need to use the Dragon Bridge, previously called the Panzer Bridge. Its layout was designed specifically with dragons and their size in mind, so it will take up half of the board. You can check it out below. I believe this is updated art, and it looks awesome. Big fan. This is really interesting too, so I really like the idea of having, like, just making good use of space for the game, and so having the various boards on the back of the main board, I like that a lot. That's really cool, because I think ATO's board is just blank on the back. Might actually look at it, but I think it's just blank. One thing for me, if I was playing, like, I do like to have layouts that... Actually, you know what? No, that'd be fine. So when I play ATO, I have the combat board on the table, and then I've got a raised tabletopper plastic thing that's really quick to assemble and disassemble on top, and that's where I do the map. So you could do something similar like this, and it would work just as well. And if you're playing these games, definitely recommend it, because table space is a big deal, and this way you don't need to set up and tear down between different modes. You can just have the map ready, and it can just go on top and be removed whenever you need to. Kingdom Secrets and Special Events. Initially, Kingdom Secrets and Special Events were meant to be hidden in encounters, exploration cards, and map tiles, leading to various unique adventures and clashes. Instead, the secret content within Kingdoms, the mystery of Kingdom curses, lore, and other hidden elements have been meticulously woven into many different aspects of gameplay. Adventures, quests, map tiles, night stories, and more. So this is one of my favorite things about Aeon Trespass, is there's so many hints and clues and winks and nods. If anyone else is a fan of Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere books, Stormlight and all that kind of stuff, like, in my opinion, you could reread those almost endlessly the more of his Cosmere books that come out, and you'll notice things that are very specifically mentioned or specific phrasing that's used in, like, the very original books. It's ridiculous, and I feel like these games are like the narrative equivalent of that. Like, they're just so well written and conceived. It's bonkers. Like, it kind of reminds me of those infinite images that just continually zoom in closer and closer and closer to something else and something else and something else. Yeah, that's basically what these games are. Okay, what did I get to? Therefore, it's not present as a separate element, but an omnipresent part of the game that you will experience piece by piece. This applies to both the core game and TTSF expansion. For example, there are hidden paragraph numbers on the Kingdom map and 2-digit code fragments that unlock additional lore and provide useful rewards, such as various bonuses for the knights. You can check out Update 69, nice, to learn more about them. This change occurred primarily due to the game's modularity. Adding secrets that would significantly alter gameplay would make it harder for players to join in, increase the risk of spoilers, and possibly disrupt the game's pacing. Cool. That's kind of similar to ATO. There's secret little codes on the map, but having a cipher of other ways to have info is neat. I like that. As for outposts, we already covered them in 62, but we have some news. You might remember followers being mentioned there. They've been officially renamed to mercenaries. We've also increased the number of their cards from 6 to 17. As units grow in power and renown, they'll gain access to stronger and more competent allies. Moreover, the outpost mechanic as a whole has evolved to such an extent that we decided to implement it into Kingdom books. It is no longer a physical sheet, as the content simply wouldn't fit onto the sheet anymore. Cool. And I mean, having it all in the book sounds good. My only worry there is if you're trying to use the outpost, but also need to flip through the book to read at the same time. And if you have stuff on the outpost page, yeah, we'll see. Have to see what it looks like. Bonding mechanics. From the simple knight interactions we've created to an expansive friendship system. Knights can grow closer when traveling together during the game, and this will be reflected in the mechanics. There are 3 rapport levels that 2 knights can acquire, and maxing it out will provide both knights a powerful boon. There are also special events between knights that can become available once you gain specific levels. Another bonding activity for your knights are campfire tales, short interactive stories your knights can resolve during rest. Initially, we planned 4 tales, but we ended up with 10, 5 per kingdom. Each tale can result in a small bonus or penalty depending on what ends up happening. This was something that they had present even in like the demo that they released. And it's fun. I like it. Kind of reminds me of playing like the old Mass Effect games where you have the specific interactions you can do, like the Paragon and Renegade ones, but more of like a co-op version of it where if you have these certain rapport levels and certain knights are in your group, you can jump in and have specific little extra interactions because of it, which is cool. Jura, the Citadel of the Saints. This kind of reminds me, going back to Stormlight a little bit, when this was announced as a stretch goal. Citadel of the Saints reminds me of Ethereum from Stormlight, and it shouldn't, but it was something that was like, oh, this is really cool. This might also decide on which part of the game I get when I had it, at least. Also, we can finally share some news info about Jura, the Citadel of the Saints from the TTSF expansion. The Citadel of the Saints is an unlockable element during the game. To unlock it, you will need to fulfill special contracts and gather consecrated resources. Once the Citadel becomes unlocked, you may start your delves from there instead of an outpost. It will allow you to use the Citadel's facilities and chant cards, powerful abilities that can influence your delves significantly. You can also build additional tiers of the Citadel, which will grant you access to more powerful facilities and chants. Also, an important clarification regarding the initial Jura summary from Update 43. We decided to include all physical elements of a given expansion inside its respective box. Therefore, there will be no Jura cards inside the core box. Cool, that sounds like a sound design choice to me. One thing with games like, say, Kingdom Death, where it's very modular, it's extremely modular, but a lot of the different boxes have different content, and looking at like how they structured some of the more recent really giant expansions of some of the things that are and are not included, makes it hard to get everything without literally purchasing everything, if that makes sense. And so having specific content all into a specific box is a sound choice, if you ask me. Princesses. So I think this is like a bigger version of some of the original arts. Princesses look really cool. I love how thematic they all are. They've been reworked in terms of mechanics. They can be encountered during delves, take part in clashes, and even die. Losing a princess will no longer trigger any additional penalties, since losing them is a penalty itself, with one exception being Slavia, who always provides a debuff when leaving the battlefield. The abilities of individual princesses have also been reworked to better fit the themes of their respective kingdoms. Moreover, we are foreseeing an upgrade for the princesses in future kingdoms, although the details must remain a mystery for now. Cool. So once again, like there's going to be more kingdoms coming up for this game. I assume it'll probably get announced after Wave 1 gets delivered here. As for Saints, most of them have undergone changes, naturally evolving in specific gameplay directions, but the big news is there are now 7, not 6. Why? Well, you'll find out for yourselves in-game. I'm curious if that's going to be the one with like the multiple foxtails or something, because that was some art that was teased before. Unless maybe you as a player become Saints, perhaps, instead of just embodying one. Card and token totals. To put the current size of the game into perspective, we're currently at 550 plus of overall battle-related cards, AI, BP, monster traits, etc., 300 plus other cards, Mortis, Conditions, Exploration, and 200 plus tokens in the core game. The TTSF expansion contains an additional 250 plus battle cards. For those who would like to prepare your card protectors in advance, listing total cards by sizes, we estimate about, okay, I'm not going to bother saying that, but there's a lot of cards there. Mystery Challenge. And last but not least, an entirely new secret minigame to unlock during the game, the Mystery Challenge. What does that title entail, you might wonder? Well, it wouldn't be a secret anymore if we just told you. Knowing them, there's going to be a whole bunch of secrets in the game that they don't even mention here too, just as a heads up, but that's cool. Q&A. So once again, very long update, but lots and lots of really cool stuff. That's not all we prepared for you today. You might remember we asked you in our initial official newsletter to send in any questions you may still have about KF. Well, as promised, here are the answers to the most common questions straight from our design team. We received a ton, so we had to trim it down a little bit. With so much effort going into refining the mechanics, once you settle on correct rules, do you commit to one more round of playtesting for any final tweaks? Testing never ends. When we decide that the current version of the mechanic is the correct one, we always give it at least one more round of tests. On top of that, we always test the full game with the final rules a couple of times at the end of the development cycle, just to make sure everything works as we intend and to catch all bugs we can. I would love to get a hard copy of the KF rulebook. Would it be available as a pre-order during the upcoming fulfillment wave? No, it won't be available as a Wave 1 product. As for the future, well, we're considering our options. My assumption there is that it'll depend on how the hardcover books add-ons did in ATO. Any plans for the binder solution? Not right now, but perhaps something before second printing. Ooh, before second printing. Interesting. So maybe there'll be some add-ons here after Wave 1 delivers. That's cool, though. I'm going to be getting the binder for Anno Trespass, and it should be arriving, as per the most recent ATO update, by the end of this month, which is really neat. So I'll definitely be doing a video going over that too. Will sleeve cards fit properly within the game box? Yes, we intend for cards to fit properly in the game box, even when sleeved. That's the case with the expansions and Synth Heracles, not the case with the original insert for the base game, for ATO. Will expansions be combined into one box? No, each expansion comes in its own separate box. Okay, so not Kallax friendly. The expansion boxes are more Kallax friendly. Yeah, the ATO box is huge. It doesn't fit in my shelf. I don't have a Kallax. I've got a... I probably should at this point, but it does not fit within my shelf either. Kingdom Death does, though, just barely. Let's see. 999. Are you going to add anything to the Pledge Manager after Wave 1 is delivered, like the sleeves for the Wave 2 expansions? At the moment, we're focused on delivering the best possible product. As for any additional products that might be included in Wave 2, we haven't made a final decision yet. Possibly teasing the book and binder above those two. How much do you think the aleatory mechanics, like dice results and so on, feel compared to ATO? Aleatory is not a word I've seen before. Do you think KF is overall more or less deterministic compared to your previous game? Overall, KF relies less on good dice rolls than ATO, but mostly because you have a lot of additional abilities on top of the old trustworthy rerolls, so like the card abilities and such, that can help you roll if you roll lower than needed. That being said, there's still room to fail if you roll really bad, or use up all of your resources before you really need them. How are you going to organize the rules? One main rulebook and many kingdom-specific rulebooks? All base rules will be found in the core rulebook, and each kingdom, starting with Principality of Stone and Sunken Kingdom, will have its own rulebook with specific rules to that kingdom, and all story content related to that kingdom. However, we intend to include all current kingdom-specific keywords, both in the rulebook and the kingdom books. That's nice. So in ATO, the base rulebook doesn't have cycle-specific rules, and so having them all in one place sounds great. Could you elaborate on the true solo aspects of the game, especially regarding the balance and clashes and the exposure of non-chosen knights narratives for replayability? Have any adjustments been made to address the increased difficulty in true solo mode? True solo skyrockets replayability. When you're not playing with a particular knight, their story remains untouched, so you won't spoil any of their narrative. After all, 90% of their content is in their Nightbook, which you will probably not even open until you start playing them. As for balancing issues, true solo clashes are indeed a bit more difficult, although we made sure that squires are not a dead weight. It really sucked if they were, so that's good. They all have their own abilities and can become stronger with time. On top of that, to outweigh the higher difficulty of the clashes, we made it easier for true solo players to gain more loot and other rewards, which in turn allows for more flexibility in your loadouts and strategies, which in turn makes the clashes a little bit easier. Also, there's the Rogue Path campaign mode, so that's, I assume, Rogue's Path campaign mode. I'm curious if that's one Marcin is doing, or if this is something specific just to True Solo, because it wasn't mentioned in the True Solo part above. Can you clearly explain how the Kingdom's book and the books relates to one another? I'm not too sure. That might be typo though. Oh, the Night books. For example, would Kara have a meaningful role in the Red Kingdom of Veshin? A Knight's story is a mix of different types of quests. Some will require you to play a delve in a specific kingdom, while others allow you to choose freely between multiple kingdoms or even play in any kingdom you have, future-proofing these stories. Nice. So Kara can resolve parts of her storyline in the Red Kingdom, although it won't be directly related to it, while some of her quests in the Second Kingdom will involve fighting specific monsters, visiting specific locations, and affecting the kingdom itself. How much Marcin is involved in KF? Marcin is very much an active part of the project. He designed 1/3 of KF monsters so far. He's supervising the development of everything else. All designs must obtain his seal of approval to be included in the final product. As you're reading this, Marcin is in the process of reading through the KF rulebook. He also laid the groundwork for the KF world, but he's not writing the stories. He's busy with 12 Sons of Heracles. I'm sure he's probably got his hands on reviewing that writing and such as much as humanly possible, though. Can you explain how the princesses and saints mechanic work? With saints, if you manage to get a blessing from one, you can deepen your devotion to that saint. That will grant you access to additional boons, or maybe even direct help from the saints themselves. Princesses are less reliable than saints. They have their own agenda and are reluctant to share their secrets, but sometimes may help the knights, both during exploration and clashes. That is, if their goals align. There's some killer artwork of a saint. Don't remember the name of this one, but beautiful artwork. May like you. Saint Hygia, the Beacon of Hope. Also, this update is huge. Marcin mentioned that he created a short roguelite version mode of the game. Will it be closer to his original version of KF or something entirely different? It started as a short and simple game mode that focuses on clashes against monsters, but it's now a full alternative way to get through the game, especially for those who know all the Knight stories and their many different storylines by heart. If you want to bash some skulls and an old school experience but are pressed for time, that's a mode for you. Interesting. So that would be my kind of jam if it would still get through the main story, or the Knight stories. What's the current setup teardown time? It's hard to say exactly, but initial setup may take around 20 to 25 minutes as you get familiar with the game. After a few sessions, it should only take 10 to 15 minutes. Teardown should take a little bit less than setup time. So 10 to 15 minutes is really not bad. I have a feeling 20 to 25 is, this is just my assumption, is probably on the low side for what it'll actually take as you're getting used to it. But that's just based off ATO. I missed some of the updates, but what is the latest timeline for KF, its development, production, and delivery? Right now, we estimate the end of development and delivery of files to our factory in December, which would mean the digital copy of the game at the end of January. All eventual corrections and final verification will likely last until the end of February, taking the Chinese New Year into consideration. As for any shipping-related information, we'll keep you informed in future updates, just as we did with ATO. Will KF have any mechanisms to prevent a complete campaign loss? For most people, it's impossible to put that amount of time in again. In short, yes. Even if you fail a story during the game, it's not the end of the world. While you might miss some rewards, your story will continue forward. If you ever feel unprepared for the next story quest, you can always roam for a bit, grind for some gear, or redo failed investigation. Failure is just another facet of life in Kingdoms Forlorn. You can always go forward. Definitely feel that with ATO. The way the story hubs and things unlock, you're not going to be able to see all of them, let alone maybe even half of them, if you don't do the way you're supposed to, or if you don't break any rules, basically. We just had our first fail on ATO. I think the video posted this week, and we decided to read a couple extra stories in the session that we just played yesterday. And yeah, really, really cool stuff that we would have missed otherwise if we just sit going ahead. But we're also kind of home ruling it that we're not replaying the whole thing and still trying to enjoy a little bit more of the story. So having the cake and making the cake and eating it too, you could say. But just only getting to play once every 2 weeks or so is just no time to go through and do the way it's supposed to be done. So I like that this is fail forward instead of, or I think Marcin hated the term fail forward. So it's just you're able to continue the game rather than failing. Player aids will be a thing. Tutorial missions, yes, how to learn the playbook with step-by-step instructions. Cool. During the campaign, can knights artificially raise their level in order to equalize it in the group? Yep, that was the thing that was talked about before. Basically, if you have a player that's got a much stronger knight and a much weaker knight, that would be fine. Are you planning to add an app companion similar to ATO? There are no plans at the moment, but we will never say never. How does moving between kingdoms look? I went all in, and I wonder if I'll be able to be in the Second Kingdom in one game and then the Kingdom of Eshen the next. Yes, it will be possible to go to the Sun Kingdom for one delve and the Red Kingdom for the next. Each venture into the deep fog in Kingdoms Forlorn is one complete delve, after which you return to civilization. Poll results incoming. Oh yes, so this was something that was shared just in a really small update. So there's confusion over where Sir Ubar was going to be, either in the core box or in the expansion box. And they did a poll basically of like, what do you, the backers, think it should this knight be in? Choice has been made that he should remain in the expansion box. However, we realize that this wasn't the outcome some of you were hoping for, and we certainly don't want you to feel like you're losing out. So we want to offer some extra content to our backers free of charge. Therefore, once Wave 1 of Kingdoms Forlorn has been produced and shipped, we will be creating Alloyed Resurgence, a story campaign designed to expand on and explore the backstory and deeper lore of the Principality of Stone. This new storyline will be told across 5 kingdom quests, delves, new objectives, story interactions, and more secrets to uncover about the fall of the Principality of Stone and its denizens. Designed to be played after completion of your Knight's Tale, this campaign will feature a branching narrative and challenging decisions just like the Knight's Tale, and even be impacted by choices you made in your prior quests. Cool. The Allied Resurgence story campaign will be made available in digital format to all backers who purchase the core game. We'll also explore a possibility of making physical copies available to purchase at a later point if the campaign proves popular. There's the poll there. I like that. So that kind of reminds me, in a way, to what they've done with ATO with Onwards Odyssey and Skyward's Odyssey, which are kind of like, for those specific ones, they're almost like epilogues for the cycles. Similar kind of vibe to this. Before we say goodbye, a small correction on our part. In the previous update, we answered a question about which bonus should appear in the Pledge Manager, including the 48-hour add-on. We meant the 24-hour add-on, actually. Kickstarter updates become unavailable to edit after half an hour, so we cannot correct it there. Sorry for the confusion. And lastly, just a heads up, the KF rulebook is very close to completion. It might land in your hands soon. We've been working hard on the TS demo, and we plan to release it around the end of November. Cool, fun stuff. And then the rest, I think, is just, so the enormity stuff, which touched on in the previous video. But very, very cool. Good stuff. Thanks for tuning in. And cool stuff for everyone back in Kingdoms Forlorn. It's looking like it's just getting better and better and better. But yeah, much love, and we'll catch you next time. Bye!